And
Good.
but I haven't been on Teams in some time, so I had to give you a background that is at least our ALC Bridge colors, sort of. Well, this is great.
It's nice to meet you. Thank you for joining us. I'm Sally Farah. I'm the president of KentLingua, which is the student organization with Kent State University. So we organize professional events and social events for students, and we aim at getting them to know what's out there in the market and offer them internships and jobs.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, you've come to the right place.
Exactly, right?
For
Thank you
sure.
so much for joining us today.
Oh, our pleasure. And let's see, looks like Fred Rogers is a guest also.
Yes.
Yes.
Greetings.
Greetings to you.
Looks like someone has a
You'll
hand
see,
up
looks
already.
like we have almost 30 guests. So but
Holy cow, yeah.
most have their video off.
Wow.
Barbara
this
has her
is-
hand up.
Barbara, do you have a question? You can go ahead and say it.
You're
You're
muted.
Yes.
There
She's
we go.
unmuted now.
Oh,
We can't hear you. So
You might wanna
please
type
go
it in the
ahead
chat.
and type it in the chat for now for
Yeah.
us to get started. Thank you, Barbara.
And are you going to be recording this? It looks like
I just started it.
she is.
wonderful. That's excellent, because we are able to upload these meetings onto the ALC website, and people really seem to be enjoying them. It helps them to kind of see what we're all about, and so that's
Hi,
what's-
Kathleen. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for putting this panel together.
Oh, there she is,
Hello.
Lubna, the very famous Lubna. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I feel like I know you very well.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm glad. Thank you so much for the team. Thank you for joining us. And I'm sure students are very appreciative of your time and whatever you have to you got to share with them. Thank you.
Well, we have plenty. So this is exciting. So we have 30. Yesterday at Salem State, we had 31. So our numbers are going up. There have been times in this journey where we were happy to service 6 students. So this is quite exciting for us, and thank you. Would you like me to go ahead and begin? Okay, so my name is Kathleen Diamond, and I am the chair of the ALC Bridge, which is an inspiration that came out of ALC, which is the Association of Language Companies, some time ago in a retreat where business owners and business executives were together in a room. Where's your problem? What's your biggest problem? And from the large company to the small, it was, we don't have enough talent in our pipelines. We are needing linguists, we're needing people who are passionate about language, and we're just not seeing response to our recruitment. And we don't have a place to go to recruit either. So, conversations go around. Doug was present. And I believe you were present. Yes, Doug. And I don't know, I think I must have raised hand, and once you raised hand, tag, you're it kind of thing. And I made a comment about how it made sense to me for our employers to connect with the educators, because if you're working with the talent of the present, or the future, at least in some cases, we certainly are interested in the talent of the present and the future as well. So, okay, sounds good, Kathleen. What are you going to do about it? And the first thing that I did was to form a committee. And I made sure that our ALC Bridge Committee is made up of both educators and employers. And Doug is a founding member. And Adam, my memory is you actually contacted me and said, can I join this committee? And I said, yeah. So I was very excited to have Adam join us. And I'm happy that both Doug and Adam are on this panel this afternoon. So that is sort of the beginning. We launched, we had nothing. we raised a small amount of money. We built the platform, the ALCbridge.org platform, which stands separate from the ALC, the association membership platform. And we launched in 2019 in October, and we were just getting rolling when, of course, the pandemic slowed everything down. But interestingly, not so much for us, because we could continue to do this. And so we began building our partnerships with the academics. And that's been what we've been doing. And over the last, I guess, last few months, maybe since summer of this year, it came to our distinct attention as a committee that what our academics would be very interested in would be real life opportunities. They were happy to hear our stories, but could there be internships for them? Could they actually work with languages in their careers? And so we did. We tweaked the platform. We started using a job board, which is a separate part of the platform. And we tweaked it so that we could bring you right in, the students right into internships for students, a page on the website. I don't remember, Lugna, have I sent you the resources? I have a whole bunch of resources that if I haven't sent, I'll do so after this meeting. And these are just links for students to come in and directly interact with companies that are posting positions. I think Doug has something on the website right now. It's a range of opportunities, not just interpreters and translators, but the full range, which the two speakers will be talking about this afternoon. So I think with that introduction, I am just delighted to be able to partner up with Kent State. We couldn't do it without you. We've known you for a long time, and now it's time to get down to real business and find internships for students. Let's see, who would like, Doug, do you want to take the mic now and get us started with your remarks and comments for the students?
Yeah, sure. Doug Strock, I'm the Vice President of Global Language Translations and Consulting. And we're based in Midland, Michigan. We are a very much a translation-focused business. We do very little interpreting. And the translation work we do is very technical in nature. A lot of it involves health and safety. And so we tend to hold ourselves to a higher standard because we could be doing things that impact life and death. And so having said that, I would like to share my screen.
Great.
And just go briefly through a quick presentation. And this is what I have come up with that would show you that it doesn't really matter what you graduate in or what kind of degree you have. If you have language, wherever you go, somebody will find out and you'll be that person. And so language touches so much more than just simple correspondence. It touches every aspect of a corporation in different ways. And there are some pretty good truisms that I have come to find out. Is that even if you just barely know the language, if they know you're bilingual, you're the expert. So you know 10% more than the other guy or gal, and that's becomes your it. But within that, you should know your limitations and try to work within those. You can expand, but try not to step too far outside the box. And then, of course, every job has stress. Being tossed into a language situation that you don't feel you're prepared for could be stressful, but if you can manage that and live with it, you can grow. And then a lot of people end up working outside their degree. So you think you're going one direction and all of a sudden life takes you in a different direction. And that's something that I've talked to a lot of people, myself included. My degree was aerospace engineering. I never worked a day with it. And so you're going to be hired on your personality and your character and your integrity, not necessarily your skill set. So again, we do a lot, chemists, toxicologists, biologists, and what we look for when we're looking for somebody is that they have the subject domain knowledge. Because just being bilingual does not mean you can correctly translate a safety data sheet. You have to have that background in order to be able to understand the language and understand the chemistry, the terminology, toxicology. You see LD50. If you don't know what LD50 means, it's hard to translate it correctly. So that's a little bit of what we do. And yes, we are looking for an internship, and we're looking for a project manager trainee, but we're looking for someone to be in the office. And so we're not totally keen on remote work. We feel there's more synergy in the office, but those are positions if you're in the Michigan area. And with that,
Well, thank you, Doug. But before I let
yes.
you go, I'd like you to share a little bit about your own story and your military background and how you were discovered because you spoke a little bit of French.
Well, yes. So I did 30 years in the Army. And when I was a lieutenant, they found out I knew French. I was down at Fort Sill. They had a visiting French general coming, and they said, "Good, you're the escort for him." And so I moi, yeah. So I didn't feel I had anywhere near the level of French that would be needed to do a good job escorting a French general around, but that was it. And so that's just one example. I went to Germany. I picked up the telephone. They said, Vermittlung, was Nummer bitte? And I'd had 5.5 years of French at that point. And I said, well, there goes French. So I had to learn German on the fly. And after living there for 3 years, I was able to clear people out of quarters. If there was a problem with the host nation, I was the one dealing with it. Commander just said, you take care of it. So you can learn a language by immersion. And technically, it may not be perfect, but you will be able to have a conversation.
Thank you so much. I think it's so relevant to our students. We talk about stumbling into the language services industry, and almost all of our speakers we formed an ALC Bridge Speakers Corps so that we could respond so rapidly to your request for a Friday meeting the week before. So each of them have their own stories, and I think it's got to help students understand that we're real and the industry is growing and an exciting place to be, and that we want you to come on in. So let me turn over the mic to Adam, who brings a completely different perspective to the panel this afternoon. Adam, take it away.
Okay. So let's share my screen as well. Okay, you should see my screen now, yes?
Yes.
Right. I want to tell you a little bit about my story. I know that, so I teach in the Translation and Localization Management program at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies, and I know that and half of my students are also in the translation and interpreting master's degree programs there. So they're in a very similar situation to many of you. And I know that they like it when presenters tell their career stories. So that's what I'm going to do today. As I mentioned, I teach in this program. I've also designed some other localization programs at undergraduate institutions. I've created my own company, and I like to speak and present on topics of localization in a lot of places. But yeah, I want to tell you a little bit about my career path, which started out similar to many of yours. I learned Spanish while living in Chile for a couple of years. When I was in my late teens and early 20s, and then came back and found that there were actually degree programs related to language beyond just the typical language programs, and fortunately was at BYU, where they have a bachelor's in Spanish translation. So I started doing that. And while I was in that program, I also started to gain some experience as a court interpreter and as a freelance translator. And as I was learning about this, learning about the industry, I found that there was a lot of opportunity. As you know, it's a fast-growing industry. There are a lot of new jobs projected in the industry, and that has been consistent for a long time now. I even found that even during hard times, this industry tends to do pretty well, as even in the more recent recessions, it has tended to do well. As Renato Beninato has said, when the economy is good, we translate contracts, and when the economy is bad, we translate lawsuits. So when one part of the industry is not doing well, other parts may be doing well. So even during the recent pandemic, the global life sciences sector has been growing very well, and gaming and media translation has been growing very well. Also found that there's a lot of opportunity, not just for white males like me in this industry, which is really nice. In particular, you'll find that the majority of the industry is female, and even though there are, as Kathleen and Lelani can tell you, there are still challenges that women face in the industry. Interestingly, translation companies run by women tend to be more profitable, so they are succeeding in many ways. And there are a lot of great organizations helping that, like Women in Localization. So in addition to getting this degree, this bachelor's in Spanish translation, I also got a minor in business management. I also took a translation technology course that opened my eyes to other opportunities to learn in the industry and to participate in the industry beyond just straight translation. And so then I was attracted to the Middlebury Institute of International Studies, where I originally enrolled thinking I was going to get a master's in translation and interpretation. But as I started to open up to other possibilities, I realized I couldn't do everything I wanted. So I cut out interpretation and started supplementing my degree with technology courses and an MBA. I got a second degree as well because I wanted to work in localization. At the time, the degree that I'm teaching in now, the Master's in Translation and Localization Management, did not exist. So I tried to kind of create my own localization education and experience. And as many of you know, localization is often defined as something like translation plus adaptation, whether that adaptation is cultural, technical, or regulatory. There are many different types of products that can be localized. And a lot of opportunities in localization will combine skills in business and management with skills in language and communication and skills in technology. There are many different possible career paths in localization and language services, many different opportunities. And so it's good to have a little bit of an opportunity to explore what you might want to do, talking, of course, to panelists like us, but also getting an opportunity to speak one-on-one with professionals in the industry. And I recommend that you do that, not just through official meetings like this, but reaching out to other professionals in the industry. We are very fortunate that we tend to be in a very nice industry, a very kind industry. I don't know if that's because I suspect that might be because learning about another language and culture tends to make us more empathetic. But whatever the reason is, it does tend to be a very kind and friendly industry. So when I talk to my students, very first time that I meet with them one-on-one and I talk with them about their potential career paths, I ask them this question. Do you know at least 10 professionals who do what you want to do? And most of them, the first time I ask this, 99% of them cannot say yes. So then I ask them, okay, what's your plan to get to know them? Because it can be incredibly valuable to talk and to know professionals who do what you might want to do. Ask questions, find out what it was like for them, and and get some perspective as to what it might be like for you, to see if this is really the path you want to go down, or if you need to change your path a little bit. There are many opportunities to get to know professionals in many ways, online and in person. There are many different professional conferences that you can attend. And I know some people say, "Oh, but wait, I'm focusing on my studies right now." Well, it's still very valuable to be able to go to professional conferences, to mix and mingle with um, with professionals. A number of years ago, I wrote a mini article in Multilingual Magazine where I shared some of the top 10 benefits of students attending professional conferences. And these were relayed to me directly from students that I worked with, and even a couple of students from Kent State who had attended professional conferences and found that there were just a lot of benefits to it. There were great opportunities to network, which of course is, in addition to costing money and requiring time and during your busy studies, sometimes that makes students feel a little uncomfortable that they need to network. Networking can be very uncomfortable, more uncomfortable so if we take this kind of fake definition of networking that's illustrated here with this short little Savage Chickens cartoon, where one they're clearly at a networking mixer because they have these drinks. One of them goes up to the other and says, "What do you do for a living, and how can I use you to my benefit?" To which the other replies, "I'll give you vague details only, so you can't Google me and show up at my office with a resume." And that, of course, is just the cynical version of fake networking. When in reality, in language services and elsewhere, real networking is where you are a giver, not a taker. And there are many opportunities, even as students, to volunteer for a cause, to help people out, bring people together, helping to even volunteer to help with events, making things happen. There are a lot of opportunities to be a giver, not just a taker, and be a real, true, great, valuable networker. So those were some of the things that I was learning as I was a student. When I graduated, I started to get more than just linguistic experience, got some project management experience, and then had the opportunity to get executive experience heading up translation operations and services for a number of companies in California and in Utah. During that time, I was able to oversee a wide variety of translation and localization project types, translating video games and websites, trials, financial reports, videos, a lot of different things. I found that it was that was one thing I liked about being in a small business, was that I wasn't pigeonholed into just a specific department. Whereas if I were at one of the largest translation companies in the world, I might be translating only their life sciences materials, right? Or managing those types of projects, which may not be bad, right? That can be excellent. But my own personal preference was I liked to be involved in a lot of different types of projects. So yeah, I gained experience in translation, human translation and localization, working with interpreting, even also machine translation and community translation. Also having the opportunity to work in a small business, which happened to be my preference. I got to be involved in many different roles. Of course, very central to all of this was working in project management, but I would find opportunities to do a little bit with sales and marketing, account management or vendor management, getting on the involved on the technical side with engineering and DTP and more. And that was enjoyable for me. It's not for everyone. I know many of my colleagues really prefer to work in a much larger company where they can learn from others, but that's what I enjoyed. And then that experience later helped me to start my own business in Utah that I ran for a couple of years. And then after doing that, I decided to hand off. Oh, and you should know that in general, it tends to be seen as relatively easy to start a basic translation company compared with other industries, because it is service based and you don't have a lot of fixed costs and there isn't a lot of regulation. That doesn't mean it's very easy to start a great, excellent translation company, but it is easy to at least get something going. And that is one of the reasons why there are so many thousands of translation companies worldwide. So if you've ever thought about being an entrepreneur, this can be a great industry to start a company in. So after, like I said, after running that for a little while, then I decided to begin teaching. Well, actually, I'd been teaching as an adjunct for a number of years, and then I decided to teach full time, while on the side still staying relevant in the business, working as a consultant. I do a lot of things as a consultant. I've helped, particularly now, I provide a lot of consulting related to machine translation, as a lot of companies really want to break into that or get to the next level in machine translation. But that is a little bit of my experience. So if you have any questions later on after we've heard from our other panelists, I'd be happy to talk more about some of that experience or anything related to it.
Well, Adam, I'm just going to say I'm always just so delighted I mean, it's just spinning my head every time you talk. I'd forgotten about way back in Chile. But what always amazes me about you when you speak, and Adam and I just got to meet each other physically, finally, at one of these organization events, language services industry related. And Adam, you know, we get a lot of feedback from people. Oh, but you guys are all going to be irrelevant because machine translation is going to come in. Robots will do the interpreting. You guys don't have a hope. And on this particular presentation, Adam spoke about editing of machine translation. So maybe some companies can do the first cut with very fine machine translation as these lexicons are getting bigger and bigger, but that for those who want to customize experience, they're going to need human intervention. And that was such a high for me to hear that. I said, Adam, does that mean I can add that to my ALC bridge deal? It's a possibility for students to think about jobs that don't even really truly exist yet. And
yeah, there are definitely a lot of opportunities. Yeah, so I spoke about that. So in addition to speaking about that when I met Kathleen in person just a few months ago, there's an article in Multilingual Magazine this month in February that I wrote about a lot of the human translation skills that are needed both now and after the singularity occurs. So to work together with custom neural machine translation and more. So you might be interested in checking that out.
For sure. I don't know for sure that Lelani is joining us this afternoon. So we have time.
No, Lelani's here.
Oh, she's
I'm here.
Lelani.
Yes.
We've been waiting.
I don't see
Speak
you.
up, Lelani. Yeah.
I'm not used
I'm here.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Perfect timing. So allow me to introduce Lelani Craig. She is former vice president of the Association of Language Companies, and she's been a big supporter of the ALC Bridge and its outreach to students and to our academic partners. So Lelani, please come in and share your thoughts this afternoon.
Thank you. Just so you know, I think my internet is being a little wonky. So someone say something if I freeze in a funny position. So my name is Lelani Craig. I am CEO of CommGap International Language Services in Salt Lake City. And it's wonderful to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I was introduced to Kent State years ago. I was introduced to the program about 22 years ago. That's the first time I got to know about it, and I've always been very impressed. So I do not have a PowerPoint to share, so you get to see me. But I will tell you a little bit about my path in the language industry. I like to share. I was born in Argentina and moved to the US at the age of 12.
After that, I spent about 3 years in jail. And it always makes people stop and go, what? Well, I lived in a small town in Idaho, and I was invited to be the weekend interpreter in jail for the local sheriff. I was young. I was in junior high and high school. And I spent time going into the jail. They would take me into the cell and ask me to interpret. This is before interpreting was very well organized, and it was quite an experience. And I can truly say that was my path into a career in language services. I ended up getting my degree in business administration, which has served me well as I have been CEO of my company for 23 years now. But the experience that I gained in those young years of interpreting really opened my eyes to the possibilities and the different possible careers in the language industry. From there, I moved to Salt Lake City, where I went to college and worked on my degree. And while I worked on my degree, I became very involved with court interpreting. I became a court interpreter. I later on became a certified medical interpreter. I did work in-house for a company doing translations, just basic translations. But then I trained as a voiceover artist, and I spent many years working on videos and movies and film doing voiceover work. And I truly loved that. I then became involved in conference interpretation. So you can see my path has always been in the spoken fields with interpretation and voiceover. And I can honestly say that conference interpreting is what I love to do. That is an area that I have really excelled in. When I started CommGap, I knew that networking and getting out and meeting people was essential. I joined different organizations, ATA, ALC, NAGIT, CHIA, all the associations related to the skills that I had. And I started to meet people and got to know different companies and different company owners. Adam and Doug and Kathleen have I consider all three mentors in helping me in my career. And that is essential in making sure you have a very good mentor, someone who guides you. Never stop learning is something I always share with students when I meet with them. Just because you graduate with your degree doesn't mean you're done. You should continually study, go back. I have gone back to Stanford and different universities and done certificate programs, which has really helped me in my career path, and it keeps me up to date. The evolution of technology in the language industry is so exciting to me. It is so exciting. In fact, I started the chapter for women in localization in the state of Utah, and I managed it for several years. I stepped down about 2 months ago and handed the baton to someone else, but we are still working hard to work in localization and receiving additional training. And volunteering for associations and volunteering where you can, perhaps with social programs, with refugee services. There are so many places where you can use your language skills to volunteer and help. So that's my short story.
Well,
and I would love to answer any questions after.
Well, it's a splendid story, Lelani. And this time I wasn't so shocked to hear that you'd spent time behind bars. But the first time I went, not our Lelani. No way. But students, you can see that we brought to you this afternoon a very nice group of panelists. You have Doug, who spoke to you about the world of translation, technical translation. Lelani, who is speaking to you more on the world of interpreting and all the opportunities there. And then, of course, Adam, who gives you the big picture. I'm seeing some questions already coming in. And Sally, would you like to moderate the students, or how do you want to proceed here with questions? Because we're at the questions point at this point.
Okay, yes, absolutely. Let's begin with the chat questions. So, it's like, what certifications and or programs would you recommend for translation technology?
I don't know.
That
Go ahead,
I
Adam.
wish I had a quicker response for that. There's a lot that you can do. There are, it depends even on what type of translation technology you're talking about and what do you want to do with your career. As a translator, you have translation environment tools, CAT tools to learn, like Trados and MemoQ and others, and even going directly to some of the manufacturers. They will have some of their own training programs. But there are also translation management systems. If you want to get involved in the management side, there's a lot more. There's a lot more to learn about workflows and management there than you would learn about CAT tools. And then even on the machine translation side, if you are if you want to learn about machine translation, that depends on your role. As a translator, you can take some post editing courses, and there are post editing courses available through Taos. But then there's a lot more to learn about the many other roles beyond post editing, like I talk about in the article that was posted, in customizing machine translation, whether you're a linguist or a manager or an engineer, and how to customize it. So, I mean, selfishly, I would recommend you even consider enrolling in a single course through the Middlebury Institute of International Studies, which is now becoming available. But there are some other places that you can learn about that. Even the Localization Institute offers some introductory courses, including a very introductory course on machine translation. The certifications are tend to be more technology specific, but there are certificates that you can get. Sorry, trying to be brief, but there are a lot of different options, and that'll really depend on your goals. So, but
Well,
Davina,
thank you,
I'd be very happy to chat about that, or Daphne, I'd be very happy to chat about that individually if you want to send me a message on LinkedIn.
Great, and thank you,
Absolutely,
Adam.
thank you.
And what I will do is I will send you, the ALC Bridge Committee has put together a resource list so that the students can click on these various acronyms that we've mentioned and see what is provided. And I'll just comment, I am a founding commissioner of the Commission for Healthcare Interpreters, and that's called CCHI. And that is a true certification in interpreting for healthcare. And it's only offered in a handful of languages. So you don't need to be, getting too confused. There are certificates, and then there is certification. And in the courts, you've got the federal system, and there it's only, I think, in Spanish and Navajo, I think at this point. Still not a whole bunch of progress in certification programs for interpreters. And there's a lot of reasons for that. We need to build this industry. We need to be known for the professionals that we are. So go for what you can get. And if you're going to specialize, go for the highest level in time. But first, just get your feet wet, get out there and start working with us. Doug, did you want to make any comments?
I am muted, but I was just putting one in the chat.
Oh, good.
And I was saying it really depends on what your role is you're trying to do. So if you're a project manager, you think that's your inclination, then I want a project manager that knows a bit about all of it. And I was going to ask Fred. Fred Rogers had mentioned in the previous discussion we had before the meeting kicked off that he had just gone through the translation project manager portion of his curriculum. And we hired a PM that went through a curriculum in Leeds University. And I thought, I'm going to be getting someone that knows the latest techniques. They have all the best practices. They're very skilled in at least one CAT tool, MemoQ perhaps. And I got none of that. It was like I had to start from square one with a person who had a degree in translation project management. And I thought, what did they teach? Because it's nothing that I can use. And, am I getting a level 1, a level 2, a level 3? What is that? There's no definition. There's no standard that says this graduate's going to have this set of skills versus this one. And so I was going to ask Fred, where would he put himself in that from the course he had? Where would he put himself? I'll put you on the spot, Fred.
Well, I'll happy to reply. I've got to clarify. I am in the project management course right now, so I'm not even a freshly minted PM coming out of that course, and not a minted Kent State graduate yet. So I'm still a trainee in project management as well as translation. I will say it feels like a generalist course. We're touching on a wide variety of things, learning how to use Microsoft Project, for example, understanding the basics of how you organize a complicated language services project. So it seems to me, certainly coming out of this course and even out of this degree program, I don't see myself as ready for a level 2 or level 3 PM job for sure.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on camera, Fred. And at least, I guess you got to know something about CAT tools. I don't know. You got to figure. You just be in touch with Doug. He'll tell you what you need to do, what skills you need. I see all kinds of questions. If you want to go ahead.
Yes, Hani has a question, so you can go ahead and ask it, please.
Well, hello. My name is Hani. I'm currently a part-time project manager at a startup company. I graduated Kent State Master's Program and doing my PhD in translation at Kent State also. So it's a pleasure to meet you all, and thank you for putting all this panel. And I was just introduced to actually ALC, so I'm so glad to know about you, and I looked at your website as well. I want to just comment quickly about the project management course. So Lubna can feel proud as well. I finished that course, and it actually prepares KSU students to deal with the complex localization project management and also the small steps from quoting, client communication up to actually executing the project and delivering. So we were well trained on how to deal with that. And when I started as a project manager, I actually utilized my training as skills in a small startup. As Adam mentioned, you wear many hats in a small startup, which is amazing. Recruitment, execution, design, quoting. So all of that was implementing what I've learned with Dr. Bilal. So thank you. Shout out to Lubna. My questions, I got a couple of questions, one for Adam and one for Doc. And sorry if I butchered your names. So I'll start with you, Adam. Given the many hats you've worn and the many experiences in the language industry in the past, we've already asked about the certificates, and thank you for clarifying that it depends on where you want to go. But I want to ask about, I'm considering starting my own LSP, but I'm not sure whether if it's too soon to actually start it, or whether I have some notes I wrote them, whether if it's too soon to start and what things do I need to avoid? I mean, things you've learned throughout your years, like a mentor's hat now, whether you want to pass them and maybe try to avoid this, maybe go with that. What do you think? And I'm based in the US now.
Oh boy, another question with a lot of potential answers. I teach an entire course on translation and localization entrepreneurship. And I know that some people have very strong opinions about when to start a company, what's too soon, what's too late. Some people after they've been 10, 20 years in the industry, they say, oh, I wish I would have just started straight out of school. While others who start right away think, oh, I wish I would have waited. And that depends as well. I ended up waiting in part because I when I started my translation company, having had experience working with companies that develop their own technology, I knew I really enjoyed that. I wanted to, I liked having control. I liked not just using off-the-shelf tools like Trados and others. I liked having a tool that was developed in-house so that when a client had a particular need, we could make a change to the tool, make a change to the translation management system that we were building, and meet that need, whatever that may be. Maybe it was integration with their own tools or whatever it was. And so for that reason, I needed to wait because I didn't have $1 million to pay a developer in my back pocket. I didn't, and I knew I could learn the programming, but I didn't have the time to really do that all myself. So I ended up waiting for the opportunity where I was able to then partner with a translation technology developer. So they owned half of the business and I owned the other half. And so that was the reason why I decided to wait, because there would be fixed costs in starting up that type of company, and not just mostly variable costs. So that was a good reason for me to wait. But, you know, there are plenty of people who start right away. A very common way to start early is to start a freelance business that then turns into a multi-language LSP. So there isn't one right way to do it. There are so many different ways to do it and to succeed that I would be very hesitant to say you really should do it this way.
I think that's absolutely right, Adam. And I know your question comes to Doug as well, so I'll let him speak first, and then I'll share my own story.
Okay, was it the same question or a different question?
Well, it'll be a different question, but I'm very
Yes.
interested to hear also your story.
Oh, no, I was going to say, let's move on to the different question because we're running out of time.
Okay. So the other question would be, as someone who has taken a leadership position in the language industry, I'm wondering, and this is something I want to pursue after some time in my career, and I wonder what kind of an advice you would give to a young dog who was aspiring to become a leader in the language industry and a business owner in the language industry as well.
Depending on the organization you're looking to have a leadership position in, you start just by raising your hand. I fell asleep in an ALC meeting. Next thing I knew, I was on a committee. Then I became a board member. Then I was on the executive side of it. I ended up being president. They made a mistake and then made me president for some reason. But you're going on a path, depending on the organization, that's a 6 to 8, maybe 10-year path. So it's a long commitment. But if you are passionate about it, by all means do that. What we lack is people that raise their hand and say, I'm willing to do something. I'm willing to start small on a committee. And as I demonstrate leadership skills, then I'll move forward. And that holds true for any organization. That's not just ALC.
I concur 100%. And if we have time, I'll just give you a brief, because your question, when is a good time to become an entrepreneur, I can speak to directly. I came into the language services industry as a language instructor. So my degree is in 16th century French literature. And when I came out into the marketplace, there was nobody looking for me. Absolutely nobody. So I started by, maybe there was a private student here and there. I was in the Washington, D.C. area, and there were people who wanted to perfect their French, and you know, I had some private students. And what I began feeling is that I'm only one person. So I could only teach so many hours of French before I'm totally bored or exhausted. So I need to be thinking something a little bit bigger. And it was confirmed by an interview that I had with the then very prominent language instruction company, Berlitz. And I went in to apply if I could be an instructor, and they said, oh my goodness, French, Spanish, and English, you're hired. And I thought that was pretty cool. But I did have enough. I had no business training, absolutely none. My father worked for a large American corporation. My mother was home. So I was just coming at this cold, but I thought to myself, what are you going to pay me? And his answer, straightforward, this was many decades ago, but still it was shocking, under $5. But you know, you've got 3 languages, so it's going to be great. And you have a master's degree, $5. So it just sort of stunned me. But my entrepreneurship urge was born as I walked out that door and saw that this company, Berlitz, was charging these students to be with me $25 an hour. And I got to thinking, where does the money in between go? And next thing I knew, I was sitting down at the dinner table in my family's home, and I said, I'm going to start a business. And they just looked at me like, oh, she's lost it now. This is really gone. But I felt strongly about it. I felt that I could teach as well as they were teaching, and I could do it for less, and I could build a whole big company. Berlitz was my challenge. And so I started working on it. And I attended, first thing I did is I attended a little course. It was a 1-day session for women starting their own businesses in their homes. I was in the front row. I took every note, and I followed it. Open bank account, give the company a name, start hiring people, look for clients. So I did all that. And then I realized that my best clients would be the United States government, that I could provide language instruction to the Department of Defense, the Department of State. And in those days, you could just walk in and talk to the contractors. Do you guys offer language service? Oh yeah, we do. So that was good. I figured I have my clients. Now I need my instructors, because I'm doing Arabic to Zulu, you know, French tucked in there, but I'm hiring people. I put an ad in the Washington Post, and I received 200 applicants from Arabic to Zulu. And I interviewed them all in a coffee house in a Holiday Inn in Alexandria, Virginia. And not one asked me why were we interviewing there and not in an office. So that was a story where I was driven to it because the alternatives just didn't look real to me. And from there, I went on to build a good sized company, and we offered all the services from instruction to translation, all the way into telephone interpreting. But the question was still asked of me, how many languages do you speak? And I would always say, not as many as my company speaks. So if you feel the urge, follow it, go for it. The timing will be yours. You'll feel it or you won't. And thank you for letting me share. Do we have any
Thank
other
you all for your
questions?
answers.
Do we have any other questions?
Absolutely. We have 2 similar questions about interpreting. So 2 students don't have any experience in interpreting, and they need to know what they need to get started as interpreters. So Lelani, you suggested that they could start as medical interpreters because it's the easiest way to start or to get their feet wet. Do you have any more tips for them?
Lelani, this is your field.
While Lelani is coming in,
Yeah.
I would say phone
I know.
interpreting is a good way to get started too.
Yeah. Thank you. That's great. I feel bad because my internet is so slow, but I don't know why. But interpreting is one of those fields where I feel the more training you have, the better experience you will have and the better service you will provide. Even though it's easy to step into interpreting via telephonic or via medical interpreting, it's always good to dive into training, to look into the different options. Initially, doing a 40-hour training was enough. I see that we have 5 minutes left. Now there are better options wider availability of training. Choose the area that interests you and then start down that path. If you really do want to do conference, though, I suggest you go through a university program that gives you the training that you need, because it's the hardest to do. So.
Thank you, Lelani. I agree. Do we have any other questions these last couple of minutes?
We have a common question, like about what kind of internships or jobs would be offered soon on the portal. That's it.
I'll start the answer, then everybody else can jump in. We're asking, you're joining us in a campaign. We're testing this concept, so we're a bridge. So that means we have to have the employers, the language companies on the bridge at the same time as the students, the educators and the students. That's really our audience simultaneously. So it seems like it's no big deal, but it actually is a fairly big deal. So someday you might come on the site and find nothing listed. If you come today, you'll find Doug's listings. We have a couple of our larger companies that are going to be coming out and posting fairly soon, and they will be offering the whole range of positions that you've seen us talk about this afternoon. But play with us, participate with us. If you don't see something at the beginning, keep coming back. We've designed it for you. We're going to allow you to use LinkedIn now instead of having to upload a resume. And you'll see a variety of opportunities. Many of them are going to be remote. And that's because many of our companies have gone remote themselves. We were talking to one of our companies in New York City yesterday, and he says he has no real estate. He's not renting anything anymore. All of his work, he's got a couple people that come into a small office, but mainly his work is being done remote. So come see what we have, push us, ask for more, and we'll see where we can take you. Anybody else on the panel want to elaborate on that? Well, you've got three out of several of the committees, so you can put us to work. We're very good volunteers.
Alrighty, I think we can run over a few minutes if that's all right, everybody, if we can, to answer more questions. Is that all right?
Yeah, I would throw something out there real quick for the entrepreneur thing. I'm north of 60 and I've got 2 different businesses that I'm trying to get up and running. So there is no better time than right now. If you're in that kind of a mode that you want to do an entrepreneurial thing, go for it. When you're committed to it is when you'll succeed. Don't just stick a toe in the water, jump in.
So true, Doug. And the way our industry works is so many of our interpreters and our translators are small businesses in themselves because they're freelance. It's a freelance industry. So you might be already an entrepreneur, you just don't know it yet. You become an entrepreneur when you start hiring other people and taking on, big responsibilities. Yes, Lelani.
I was going to say on that note, if you are going to start freelancing, treat it as a business. Mm-hmm. Don't think this is a 2-hour in the evening job. Treat it like a business. Get your business license. Pay taxes as a business. Do everything correctly, because you never know. And it will help you. It will help you understand how the business world works. It will help you understand if this is something you're interested in. And at the end of the day, if you are freelancing legally, you should have all those things in place. You can protect yourself with errors and omissions insurance, some type of liability insurance. They're fairly inexpensive, and it will help you should there be any problems. So treat it like a business.
Absolutely. And we have some members that simply that's what they want to do. They want to be a freelance full-time interpreter or translator and work for our companies. Others want to branch out. So either all or everything's possible.
All right, I have a question for Adam. So if we only took the localization course here in the program and we know the tips and tricks and some tools, are we going to be qualified to get a localization job, like a full-time job, or we need more than just one course?
Yeah, so it depends on your definition of qualified, right? Since we are language geeks, we gotta be specific here. So I mean, yeah, and there are a range of opportunities, right? There are certain entry level jobs for which, you know, a brief introduction to localization may be enough, right? As a localization coordinator or something, and there are those organizations that will want to that will be willing to train you up. So, and it'll depend a lot on who you're competing against for those jobs, right? So yeah, one introductory course, you know, can at least make you aware and get you ready for some positions. You know, maybe expanding and getting you know, taking a couple more courses even through UW's free course certificate can help you out. And then of course, something like a translation and localization management degree like what we offer dives in a whole lot more to help you know more about additional localization technologies, website localization, software localization, game localization, audiovisual and media localization. You know, you can dive into a lot of other things, and then also learning additional localization program management and leadership skills. There's so much to learn. It's, you know, what's the minimum to qualify you? Well, fortunately, there are a range of opportunities. So it depends on how high you want to climb, depends on what you think about your current options as to whether or not you should do more. But it definitely helps to
Get started.
yeah, to do as much as you can. And again, I recommend, you know, I asked that question, do you know at least 10 localization professionals who do what you want to do? Get to know a bunch of localization professionals, ask them what they think or what they would recommend starting out, what helped them follow their career path to get to where they are. And you can take some of that information to help you see, oh, okay, yeah, maybe it would be enough to, you know, just dive in right away, or, you know, talk to some others and be, you know, actually for this type of role or this type of position or where I want to climb, maybe I should take a few more courses. So
Yeah.
Yes, Doug, go ahead.
So I learned something interesting down in Costa Rica at the Young Conference. And I was talking about, we have mostly women that work for us. I said, inevitably, somebody's crying. And so I would say, as a military guy, don't cry. But the other guy said, no, if my PM is not crying within the first 3 months, she's not emotionally committed enough to the job.
Oh, wow.
So I heard a completely different perspective.
The discussions we get into, I tell you. Well, thank you very much to the panel.
It's a very fruitful discussion. I mean, I want to have each one of you in a separate session. Like this 1 hour is not enough to cover everything, and I would love to have you again, but literally in separate sessions. Thank you so much for all what you put together today. I really appreciate it. By the way, everybody, Dr. Lubna put the links for ALC Bridge portal for the jobs and internships. And there is also a little guide to walk you through the portal and how to navigate some internships and jobs. Thank you. Please go ahead, Kathleen.
That's all I wanted to say was it's a great pleasure to us to be able to speak to so many of you about what we're clearly very, very passionate about. So welcome aboard.
Thank you so much for your time. Hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Yep.
Somewhere,
We'd love
sometime.
to come back. Yeah.
Yeah, we'd love it. We're
Thank you.
available.
Have a good afternoon and have a good rest of your day.
You
Bye.
too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Hey, Adam.